Ah, one of my favorite subjects, the art of hanging a bear bag. At times can be very frustrating and daunting, yet a common practice out in the backcountry. Earlier this month, Andrew Skurka, one of the biggest names in the outdoors, wrote an article on his blog, hanging a bear bag being both ineffective and outdated. He talks about 6 reasons that support this. Today, we are going to examine each of the 6 reasons. I'll weigh in, and then I'll give you my recommendation of what I do out in the backcountry. Stick around. Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gents, hikers all alike, where knowledge is our niche on everything outdoors. My name's Bigfoot. Happy to be with you guys yet again today, talking about a very controversial topic about whether or not to hang your bear bag. In the opening comments, I talked about Andrew Skurka and this article that he wrote. A little bit more about Andrew Skurka. As I said, he's one of the biggest names in the outdoor community. This guy has hiked over 30,000 miles in the backcountry and counting. He's only 37 years old. He's younger than me. He's a pro's pro. He has an opinion, and he's sharing it with us in this article, and I think it carries a lot of weight. Now, before I go into the 6 reasons that really basis why he feels that hanging a bear bag is ineffective, what are the 3 most common practices? The first method is the most popular that I personally see when I'm out hiking, which is the simple tie-off, especially when I was on the Appalachian Trail. The second is the PCT style method. This is my preferred method, and one that you see a lot of hikers, once they learn how to master it, utilize when they're out in the backcountry. Now, it does take a little bit of repetition to learn this one, and then the last is the counterbalance method. Now, to properly hang a bear bag, the bag needs to be at least 12 feet off of the ground. It needs to be 5 feet from the trunk and 5 feet below whatever tree branch that you're hanging it from. To meet these screens, you need 17 feet plus the height of your bear bag. We'll just say it's about a foot, maybe 2 feet to be safe. So you're looking at least 19 feet, we'll call it 20, between the ground and a tree branch. Now, in Andrew's 6 reasons that defends his stance on why bear bag hanging is ineffective, he offers practical solutions that are a more effective approach. Andrew's first reason is you probably suck at it. Let's face it, when you are out in the outdoors, skill sets come with practice and repetition. Hanging a bear bag is another skill that you have out there. It takes a lot of practice, and for me personally, it took me a long time before I even knew what I was doing. I talked about the screens of having the 12 feet off the ground, 5 feet from a trunk, 5 feet from a branch. But a lot of folks don't know this, and a lot of folks feel like, hey, if I just throw my bear bag up over a tree branch, I'm good. A big piece that Andrew points out here is, unlike other skills that will come at a consequence to you, like maybe not knowing how to use a map or a compass, he points out, if you improperly hang a bear bag and it causes issues, well, that causes lots of issues, not just for the hiking community, but for the bear, which at times leads to the bear having displaced or even euthanized. It's really important, if you're going to hang a bear bag, you need to know how to do it, and you need to practice it to be able to get that skill set. The second reason, it's not often feasible. Your bear bag hang is going to be effective only because of certain variables, the most of which is finding the tree that you can actually achieve that 5 foot minimum we talked about earlier. Now, a lot of the hikes out there, you don't even have trees that can meet these requirements. So finding that perfect tree not only is very time consuming, but at times may be impossible. Speaking of time consuming, that brings to Andrew's third reason, is just of that. It is very time consuming. Ideal situations, whether it's a skilled backpacker or you have the ideal site, you're probably looking at about 15 minutes, and that's just minimum. Average, you're probably looking up towards 30 minutes, including the time it takes to find the tree. It really depends on lots of different variables. Coming from a thru hiker's perspective, a lot of times when you just got done hiking 20 to 30 miles a day, the last thing that you really feel like doing is hanging your bear bag at the end of the day. The fourth reason is unintended consequences that also come with hanging a bear bag. Injury, or it's even been reported of a death. Most folks that are hanging a bear bag are going to use some sort of rock sack where they tie their line to the sack, they throw some rocks in it, and then they throw that over the limb. In my earlier days, before I had a lot of experience, I actually tied my rope to a rock and then threw that over the branch. I can't tell you how many times that rock came dislodged and went flying somewhere. You never know who's around, or for a matter of fact, when that goes over the branch, that come down and swing and hit you in the face. So there is definitely times and situations that you could be at risk of injury. And there was a very sad case of a 16-year-old teen that died from a tree falling on top of her when their group were attempting to hang a bear bag. Which brings me to the fifth reason of Andrew's. Even with an effective hang, it's rarely effective with a very determined bear. I have a personal experience with this. When I thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2016, I was hiking through Virginia with a couple of German fellows. We were hiking through areas that had very high bear activity. We found ourselves at one of the camps late at night, about a half an hour, maybe 15 minutes before sunset. Very bad weather. We decided to take a risk and stay at this campsite. Now, we were especially careful with how we hung our bear bag because of all of the advisory signs that we saw leading up to that campsite and at that campsite. We got visited by the same bear 2 times that morning. Once at 1 o'clock in the morning and once again at 5 o'clock in the morning. The first time, we were able to scare off the bear with relative ease, going out, slamming some rocks together, hitting a tree branch against a tree and yelling at it. It took a little bit of doing, but the first time we were able to get the bear out of camp in about 5 minutes. The second time, that bear was very, very determined. It actually got all the way up in the tree. We spent the better part of about 10, maybe even as much as 15 minutes trying to get this bear out of our camp. Now, he was by far the most determined bear that I've seen on trail. If we didn't go to such great lengths of trying to get him out of camp, he definitely would have gotten our bear bag. Bottom line is there are a lot of determined bears out there. They are very intuitive and they will do anything at great lengths to get that food. And Andrew's sixth and final reason is there are more user-friendly options that exist for less audacious bears. What Andrew speaks about in this reason is the more practical solution for areas of the trail that you might be hiking in that you're not going to see a lot of these determined bears. What he recommends is the Ursack, which is something I actually have been using on a few of my past hikes. Now, Ursacks are IGBC certified, which stands for the Interagency Grizzly Bear Committee. You can use Ursacks in many places, but there are some exceptions, Yosemite as a matter of fact. But Ursack is made of a material called Spectra. It is a bulletproof material and is highly effective with being able to fend off a bear from getting inside of it. Now, that doesn't mean that the bear is going to completely smush everything inside of that if it does get a hold of it. So if Andrew is not supportive of hanging a bear bag, what does he recommend? If you have an area that you're staying in that has a bear locker or some sort of permanent infrastructure, that is always the best option. The second, hard-sided canisters are extremely effective. There are some places that you don't have a choice and they require them, again, like Yosemite, but there are many areas, if you have high bear activity, Andrew recommends carrying a hard-sided canister. Now, we talked about the Ursack, which is one of my preferred methods because it takes the whole bear hang out of the whole situation and it is significantly less weight than the weight of a hard-sided canister. If you're siding to camp at a site that has a lot of human traffic, a highly popular campsite in a bear-free habitat, Andrew strongly recommends that you rodent hang your food. And lastly, Andrew talks about, but doesn't recommend, a tactic that a lot of hikers use, they just don't talk about, is actually sleeping with their food. Hikers that do this usually have some sort of odor-proof lock sack that they use to try to odor-proof as much of that smell. Now, of course, there's a risk with this. Now, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I've never slept with my food. I've done that on multiple occasions. Again, that's not something I'd recommend, and it's not something that Andrew is recommending, but is something that a lot of folks actually do out there. They just don't really talk about it. Now, Andrew's article hit home for me. I agree with his points, so much so that I personally have been using the Ursack as my preferred method in many of the backpacking experiences that I've had outside of a couple areas like the JMT when I did bring a hard-sided canister because it is required. But I'm curious what you think. Do you agree or disagree with Andrew's 6 reasons why he feels that hanging a bear bag is ineffective and outdated? What's your experience with bear bags or bears in general? Leave them below in the comments. I will link Andrew's article below in the description box along with everything else we talked about in this video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.